It's easy to think of Moss as a platformer. I've called it that myself when talking about Ven Adventure and Lucky's Tale. Still, Polyarc have it right when they refer to it as an action-adventure puzzle game. Whereas games like Ven or Lucky's Tale are actual platformers demanding precision jumping and timing, in Moss the challenge comes mainly from the combat and the puzzles. So, let's get that out of the way, and excuse me for having ever implied otherwise. Moss, and now Moss Book 2, are not really platformers. They are narrative-driven action-adventures with some casual combat, light puzzles, and exploration. For those who haven't played the first game, Book 1, Moss, was about Quill meeting the reader, that's you, and you helping her out on a grand adventure as she saved her uncle and defeated a deadly serpent. Book 2 starts immediately afterwards and quickly becomes what I called in the first impressions video, a Moss meets Avengers Endgame, as we find out that there was an eviler boss behind the first boss. He's trying to collect all 5 colored glasses to become all-powerful. Quill and her uncle decide the best course of action is to capture the glasses herself because, you know, we're the good guys and we can handle ultimate power, obviously. Moral digressions aside, the first thing you'll notice about Moss Book 2 is that it's endearingly pretty. The graphics are great, the art direction is excellent, and the animations, especially of your main character, Quill, are a joy to behold. Quill starts the game with a limited set of powers, essentially those she had by the end of the first game, but quickly gets a couple of new capabilities that help solve new varieties of puzzles and traversals. I like the hammer. In a sense, Moss Book 2 does everything a sequel is expected to. It ups the ante, it introduces new locations, it features new mechanics, and continues the story. I've already mentioned the graphics and animations, but a special mention has to go to the audio department. Both the voice acting and the game's soundtrack are perfect. They are emotionally resonant, compelling, and engaging, and make light load of the suspension of disbelief that drives the heart of any such fairy tale. The question Moss doesn't address well, and that most third-person games in VR stumble upon, is why is it in VR? There are, both here and in Lucky's Tale, some mechanics that take advantage of VR, and there was a nasty Beat Saber clone buried in Ven's bowels. I'll admit that Moss is well integrated on this level, with you as the reader holding back enemies or dragging them to use as weights while navigating Quill with your thumbsticks. It's immersive, sure, but is it VR native gameplay? That's for you to decide, I guess. I'll shrug my shoulders. The question of what games work best in VR is a complex one that might be worth tackling in a podcast, but shouldn't impact this review. An enormous waste, in my view, is made of a character you're introduced to halfway through the game, and you get to play as her briefly, with a new moveset determined by her weapon, a spitting blade. But then she quickly meets up with Quill, hands over her blade, giving Quill that moveset, and is never heard of or seen again. I wish Polyarc had used her to allow players to explore different stories or introduce new locations, but hey. The gameplay in Moss Book 2 is fun throughout, but not particularly challenging. I finished it in about 5 hours, which wouldn't be too bad if it wasn't selling for $40. If there's anything wrong with Moss Book 2 is that it's priced as a full standalone title when it really feels like a great DLC that would have been ridiculously easy to recommend to fans if it were sold at half the current asking price. Moss Book 2 is a worthy successor to Moss. The graphics, animations, voice acting, and music score are all wonderful, even if the plot is forgettable. If you enjoyed the first, you'll most certainly enjoy the second, if you don't mind the price. Overall, 7.5. Cool.
Sahima hated to do anything close to what Adurin wanted. For all I know, this could be an elaborate trap set by that wretched starthing, she thought. But if the champion who slayed Sarfog was really in the castle depths, together maybe they could fix all this.